Okay, class, let's talk on the auditory pathway. The auditory pathway. So this is what we're looking at. Impulses that are generated in the cochlea pass through the spiral ganglion, and that's where you can find the bipolar cells. So we're coming from the cochlea right here, spiral ganglion that we have, and these are where the bipolar cells are located. This is much analogous to the visual that we talked about. And then these afferent fibers go to the cochlear nuclei, which is here, as you can see, in the medulla area right here. Okay. Then the neurons project to the superior olivary nucleus that you see here. Okay. Still in the medulla at the junction between the pons and the medulla. And then they ascend in the lateral lemniscus that you can see there to the inferior colliculus. Remember, vision had the superior colliculus. Inferior colliculus kind of assists you in turning the head in the direction of the sound that you wanted. Then they project to the medial geniculate nucleus. Remember, the lateral was vision. The medial geniculate, which is a nuclei in the thalamus there. And then they go to the primary auditory cortex that you see. Now, one thing that you want to know, since the fibers all of them don't cross over, then each of these nuclei here, which would mean right there that you would see in the thalamus, get some from the other side, which means that even the ears will get a joining of both sides of the ears in each side. Now, what will happen in the processing in the cortex is that you can separate sounds. Let's say you had a Broadway musical. You can separate the sounds of the instruments, the actors' voices, the rustling of clothing, the closing of doors, and everything. And that's all able to be sorted out because of the comprehensive nature of the cortex based upon different wavelengths and different amounts of loudness. Now, the interesting thing that this sound is processed in the cortex is interesting because certain cortical cells depolarize at the beginning of a particular tone and others depolarize at the end. So this is a kind of a complex situation. The pitch, remember, has to do with frequency. The pitch has to do with frequency. And if you have several frequencies going at the same time, the cortex can sort that out also. Remember, that was the quality of sound. The quality of sound, the fullness of sound for that cortex to be able to separate everything out. The loudness, which was the amplitude, has to do with how much you deflect that membrane, the basilar membrane. And so that's how loudness is detected as far as the amplitude. Because if you vibrate that membrane, you can also vibrate those hair cells and everything else. And so then the localization of sound is basically, it depends on how quick. First of all, it depends on the intensity of the sound. And the other is, how is it hitting both ears? So, in other words, if you're directly in front of the sound, it's hitting both ears equally. But if it's on the right or left ear, it's hitting one ear more than the others. So it has to do primarily with the intensity and the timing of the sound, shall we say, when it hits both ears. So that kind of gives a brief understanding of this auditory pathway, which basically means that any lesion along this way could affect hearing. So a hearing loss does not necessarily mean it's located within the ear itself. Okay?